Winner here will be into day 2. Both players near the top of the standings. For Brad Bonin of his deck list, something that may help him in this matchup, not playing the Basilica Bellhaunts in the main, instead he is on Elite Guard Mages.
Yeah, that makes sense here. That card's just not much better against something like Tamiyo, and you've seen this a lot out of Brad Nelson and Brian Braun-Duin's list, where their theory is the good cards in Esper Hero are so much better than the medium and the bad cards that you just want a little bit more velocity in your deck to drawing you towards those powerhouses.
And now we start things off with Tania on the play. Temur Elemental's deck, not a ramp deck so much as a value deck, but does go up to cards like Mass Manipulation at the top of the curve. We start with Leafkin Druid being hit, though, by Tyrant's Scorn.
And this is kind of what Esper wants to see in the first couple turns, just trade resources.
Incubation Druid from Tania, another creature here, threatening to go up on mana.
Mana, mushroom.
Teferi puts the Incubation Druid back into her hand. 3 mana Teferi, it's the Time Raveler.
Ooh.
This is a strong play back from her. So we have Omnath, Locus of the Royal. It's the only elemental, but it does, when it enters the battlefield, deal damage to any target, equals the number of elementals you control. So that'll shoot Teferi back into the graveyard.
Yeah, and sometimes that kind of thing can feel underwhelming, but ultimately, Tanya's pretty up on the battlefield now.
Brad trading back. Oath of Kaya is the play because Omnath just a 3/3 there. We'll take care of it. Kind of just back and forth on value here. Tanya's going to be able to keep pace. She has both Tamiyo and Hydroid Krasis in hand.
Generally speaking, you're going to be behooved to just play something like Tamiyo earlier rather than Hydroid Krasis, since Hydroid Krasis gets better the more turns that pass, since you just play a land every turn, presumably. The thing that offsets that is the fact that Bonin could have something like Narset, which just turns Krasis off.
She is going to go toward Tamiyo. Collector of Tales. It's a 2 of in the deck. And +1, we'll see the name here. As we look toward the bigger elements of the deck, we have Cavalier of Thorns is a 4 of, Omnath is a 4 of, Nissa, Who Shakes the World, is a 3 of, and Mass Manipulation is a 2 of. So given that, she went for one of the 4 of that was left and named Cavalier of Thorns.
Yeah, the calls were probably just between that and Risen Reef, and when you know you're going to be on 5 or 6 lands the next turn, Cavalier of Thorns is just going to be better so frequently that you probably just want to lean into it.
Does miss, and Brad has an answer at the ready. A copy of Teferi, Hero of Dominaria, tucks that back into the deck. A big turn here for Tania if she has something like Omnath to take care of this Teferi.
Yeah, it looks like she's just going to go ahead and develop a Hydroid Krasis here, but that does get her that Tamiyo back to the hand.
Right, the 4/4 Krasis is made. Gain 2 and draw 2 for Tania. Back to Brad we go. He will get to untap with his Planeswalker. But needs to find an answer for the flyer if he wants to keep Teferi around.
He does have a healthy number of cards in hand. Even though a bunch of resources have been exchanged throughout the game, a lot of them have cantripped. If you look at things like Teferi, the first Teferi that came down, for example, that's something that, though Omnath killed it, it did draw a card and undo Tanya's 3rd turn.
On that, another Time Raveler. We'll put the Krasis back into Tanya's hand.
And this is a situation where you're going to see card quality catch up a little bit with Tania, where it's a little awkward that even though both players have a bunch of 2-for-1s in their deck, the fact is Timur's going to brick a little bit more with things like, let's say, Mana Dorks, and then a lot of its 2-for-1s also cost a bunch of mana, where Esper has some more efficient things to actually play with, like Thought Erasure.
Part of the bounce and discard combo. Thought Erasure was the follow-up. So a hand of 2 Hydroid Krasis, Omnath, Tamiyo, and Incubation Druid. He took the Omnath. So Tanya's left with Tamiyo, Incubation Druid, and 2 Hydroid Krasis. So despite drawing off Teferi and both Teferis, Brad missed his 6th land drop that turn.
Yeah, and You know, on one hand, you feel like that's good because it feels like Brad's doing control deck things, but that means Brad has a bunch of spells in his hand, which is scary from Tanya's side of the battlefield.
Kind of agree. Tanya's turn is Hydroid Krasis again. She does continue to ramp up here.
Yeah, there's a point where the best ramp spells are just making your land drops, and when she has all these Hydroid Krasis that keep coming, she's not going to run out of cards anytime soon.
2 draws for Brad. Still does not have a land. So it's Hero of Precinct 1. You mentioned if it's not lands, then his hand is all spells. And he untaps 2 end of turn from his Teferi. And Thought Erasures during the draw step, which you can do because of Time
She ripped
Raveler.
a Mass Manipulation.
Ooh, that was
that's so brutal.
that's a good window for Brad. Because his deck does not have counterspells in the main, you have to think he's taking it.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, you don't want to give up, your 2 best permanents here?
Right. Yeah, she would get to take both Planeswalkers or Planeswalker and a hero.
All bad news.
Now, before seeing the Mass Manipulation, I think the plan was to take Tamiyo. But he just has
Is that
to.
an Incubation Druid hiding under that Tamiya there?
Yeah, that's the one he, back on turn 3, that's the one he put
it got
in her
returned to the hand. Right.
Still has not found a window to recast it. Now, interestingly enough, Brad's going to leave her with the Mass Manipulation.
Interesting. So a lot of what's likely going on here is he either has another hand destruction spell, or he has an answer to his own Teferi and isn't too worried about losing a Hero of Precinct 1 or his almost depleted Teferi here.
Players in the 4 p.m. Modern Challenge and 4 p.m. Sealed Spectacular. The beginnings of your events are being posted at the gathering point. Please make your way to your seats again.
So she does draw here, right? But this will be land 8 plus Mass Manipulation, so she will be able to make X equals 2.
That's so much.
So, yeah, it's really strong here. And, okay, there's a second Thought Erasure.
All right,
Now
the other hand disruption spell. All's right in the world.
There we go. That makes the choice considerably easier when you just get to have both.
Well, I guess it's time to gain 3 and draw 3.
I guess this does mean that the Hydroid Krasis gets to take care of Teferi, Hero of Dominaria.
Yeah, and this is the other side of things where before I was talking about the difference in converted mana cost making a difference. The nice thing about 8 drops is they tend to beat 2 drops.
That much is true. Here's another Krasis for Tanya. Gain 3, draw 3, just as you said, restocks the hand. I think that the thought from Brad was whether to take both cards or whether to take Mass Manipulation, Tyrant, Scorn the Krasis, and let Tamiyo happen.
Yes.
One of the reasons is another Teferi, Hero of Dominaria here. Pluses to draw a card. Untaps 2, but Teferi's facing down some pretty large flyers here.
Yeah, both of these creatures have the ability to kill planeswalkers at this point. Now, Tanya doesn't know about this Tyrant Scorn in Brad's hand, but from her side, things are looking pretty good given the information she has.
All right, 1 Krasis at each, so Oath of Kaya should trigger, and then Tyrant Scorn takes care of the Krasis. Time Raveler is down, but he gets to keep the important Teferi here.
Right, and there's also a point, we haven't talked about it yet. There's a handful of creatures on the ground there.
Yeah, Brad has 6 power in play now.
Yeah, this is not insignificant. There are 4 creatures, 5 creatures there.
Tanya will reload. All her cards continue to draw more cards. Here's Risen Reef. Yes, she has already played a land. She has not played a land this turn. Top card. Forced into play. Cavalier of Thorns, another elemental, so a pair of triggers for her. And this is interesting to see whether or not Esper Hero can keep pace with this sort of thing.
Yeah, because there's a point where, what do? Kill this Cavalier of Thorns and then let Tanya get back Tamiyo, which gets back a Hydroid Krasis?
Right. Cavalier trigger 5 cards, gets to put a land onto the battlefield. That's Hinterland Harbor. Rest into the graveyard. Now the Risen Reef trigger. Top card goes into the hand. It's another Cavalier of Thorns. This just keeps happening. With this kind of value Tanya's generating, it almost feels like Brad needs to somehow make it to a Teferi emblem to have a chance of cleaning this up.
Yeah, that's really the thing that'll get him back in this game. But with a flying Hydroid Crisis, it's these tokens from Hero aren't gumming up anything.
Right. Tanya's just going to... Every card just seems to draw more cards, and so just keep casting them. The snowball continues. Brad gets his Teferi up to 6, but is that enough?
Well, that's not going to die to Hydroid Crisis. I'll give it that.
Yeah. But if the end game is to get to an emblem, he needs to protect the Teferi on top of
Right,
this.
exactly. All right, shocking in a land is a good start. That means he's got a lot to do.
Second Hero Precinct 1 from Brad. Looks like he has a third one in his hand as well, along with another Oath of Kaya, but neither of those cards help very much right now.
Well, there's certainly a point where that's a way to just go around.
See Thought Erasure. It's Incubation Druid, Temple of Mystery, and then the Cavalier of Thorns. That'll be the
What was that third card you said?
It's in the graveyard now. It does mean that Tanya is out of additional cards right now to keep this going. Until she draws,
Yeah.
one Crisis, and then we're back in business.
Yeah, it took a moment, but here we are.
Oath of Kaya shoots down the Incubation Druid. And it's worth noting we have 8 tokens now. This is 12 power on Brad's side.
No big deal. Don't make it weird.
But none of them fly, none of them have reach. So Hydroid Crisis is still a problem. It will attack Teferi down to 2, so that emblem's out of range.
Okay. That's a start. But there's also a point here where how much damage can you take from all these tokens?
Where she went down to 19 on that attack. Remember, each time she attacks Teferi, she takes 2 from Oath of Kaya. And now you have to start looking, if Brad says alpha, go alpha, is it lethal?
Right. Yeah, this is the point where, let's see, you block 3 things, assuming she casts the Incubation Druid in her hand, and you take 7. Okay, so it's not quite there.
Yeah, it's 7 and then 4, so it's at 11 over 2 turns right now. Which each additional creature he makes is 2 more damage, so really he only needs 4 more creatures.
All right, here's creature number 1 and a hero.
Despark, and that
Ooh. That removes a blocker. That totally changes
makes
the math.
3 more.
Attack with those heroes. Get dirty.
Right. Yeah, I wanted to see a hero of Precinct 1 come in. All right, Incubation Druid can block. They can block 2 of the tokens. One of them will adapt, so one
Ooh,
token...
they both can adapt if you grow the Summoning Sick one first.
You're absolutely right. Grow that one first,
Ooh.
and that adapts the second one, which is exactly what she'll do. So 2 creatures down. She takes 5, drops to 14. But if she attacks Teferi again, she'll drop to 12, and that might be too low.
Yeah, that's 3, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. No, it's 11. So, yeah, it would be exact lethal if she doesn't draw anything here. Was that a Nissa? Nissa could be big.
With Nissa, she still needs a big... It is Nissa who shakes the world. That can make a 3/3. The payoff... She doesn't have that X spell yet.
So awkwardly, you probably just have to go after Teferi and cross your fingers, because if you don't, at the very least, this Teferi can tuck 1 creature and then be worth 1 point of damage. So if you're not going to literal 0, it's probably a matter of paying 1 life to get Teferi off the battlefield effectively.
Right. She takes 2 here, and you're right, moving a blocker lets a token through. So it's not, the damage is happening either way, so Teferi's gone. Tania down to 11, needs to survive the turn, but Brad is out of card advantage. He just has an army. Command the Dread Horde. Okay. That's probably game.
Yeah.
Let's see what he
You
gets.
just said these can get your 2 blockers out of the way.
Okay.
That's enough.
Okay, I get these 2 Teferis. I remove both your blockers and attack.
Yeah, exactly. I'll get... God, he could have gotten back Omnath and stuff there.
Oh, this just gets out of control.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Huge draw for Brad. And he will take game 1.
Wow, what a back-and-forth game.
Yeah.
There were 3 different times where you just go, oh, wow, this person's pulling away. Okay, never mind. It looks like...
And I think it shows here why this can be a tougher matchup for Esper because of how hard it is for him to keep pace with the late game. You know, he had Teferi Hero of Dominaria turn after turn after turn, which is normally lights out, but Tania just didn't care that much.
Yeah, honestly, the thing that's kind of shown there is that he was able to turn the corner with Hero of Precinct 1, and this is why we've seen Esper Hero kind of outpace the Esper control decks in this format, is how much value you can get from that card by just playing it on turn 2 and leaving it there forever.
And so both players reach over toward their sideboards after a slugfest for game 1 going into the late game. Now, it feels like you'd want to go toward cards that can maybe hit harder or answer the other player's heavy hitters.
Right, so a lot of what you're trying to do is just make your top decks better or your answers more impactful. You're going to be siding out some of your small ball creature removal and looking to bring in things like your own copy of having Narset from Bonin's side. Imagine how awful those Hydroid Crazies would have looked if a Narset was on the battlefield.
And Narset can keep those in check. Duress, Dovin's Veto, both seem pretty reasonable as well. I don't know if there's enough Planeswalkers to reach for something like the Elder Spell.
Yeah, really you're only looking at Nissa most of the time. You do have Tamio as well, but it's 5-ish total Planeswalkers, maybe more post-board if you're expecting Chandra. But overall, you probably are looking to mostly try and thread that needle with your Hand Disruption or D-Spark.
Right. On Tania's side, Mass Manipulation, that would be her 3rd copy in the sideboard, and this really is the matchup for it.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Easy Mass Manipulation.
She has some heavy hitters of her own. Again, you mentioned Chandra. And that's a card we've been seeing a lot of this weekend. From M20, the Mythic 6-mana Chandra as a high-end card for teamer decks.
Yeah, that card's great. It even has that little mini sweeper ability that can mop up the Hero of Precinct 1 and all the tokens, and that would have just absolutely changed that last game if it mopped up everything on Bonin's side of the battlefield.
And that's actually what I like, because in the main teamer, Elementals doesn't have a card that can do that. It can't answer an army. You know, there's no bounce every displacement wave, sort of bounce everything, or Pyroclasm, but Chandra gives her the ability to stop the Hero of Precinct 1 from taking over.
Exactly.
All right, so we are here in Season 2. This is the 2nd event of Season 2, but you can join us on the SCG Tour. Next weekend, we will be in Philadelphia for a Team Constructed Open. That means you will need a player in Standard, Modern, and Legacy. Following weekend, we come to Columbus to play some Modern, armed by itself here with M20, now legal. That's something that's been moving, that and especially Modern Horizons have really changed the format.
Oh yeah, it's both. That weekend is going to be absurd. So much Modern going on that weekend.
All right, in Richmond, we have a Team Constructed Open as well in a month. That's August 17th through 18th. SCG Tour stops in Dallas for a Modern Open before coming back up to the Northeast for Legacy Open in Syracuse, and then for Philadelphia in October. Remaining stops on the tour, Indianapolis, our regional championships in October, Atlanta, and then we have SCG Con. You can get SCG Con by getting 10 SCG points, finishing in the finals of an SCG IQ, or by top 8ing an event here on the SCG Tour.
I'm so excited for this SCG Con weekend. They're always so incredible, and this one is my birthday weekend.
It's November 14th through 17th in Roanoke, Virginia, SCG Con Winter.
What comes after SCG Con?
Then we have the Players' Championship for...
Boom! Branding!
There we go. December 13th through 15th. Of course, we already have 4 spots now, or 5 spots in the Players' Championship spoken for.
Multiple spots.
Joe Lissette, our defending champion. We had our season leaders. We had Matthew Dilks, Oliver Tomiko, and Abe Corrigan qualifying from Season 1. Then we also had our invitational at SCGCon. Alan Roundtree winning. So 5 spots spoken for, 11 to go for the Players' Championship.
Yeah, and it basically we saw last season rather, Abe Corrigan taking a very early lead and never giving it up. So these early opens are so impactful because of how much they can swing your buys, which then that snowballs into a greater advantage over the course of a whole season.
Both players on 7 here for the second game. Tania on the play will make Leafkin Druid here, hoping to get out to an early lead.
And Leafkin Druid is the kind of card that you would expect to come out in this sort of matchup a lot of the time, but when you have Risen Reef and Omnath in your deck, it actually has value, and so it's an incredible way to keep Mana Dorks in your deck that wants to be grinding.
Thought Erasure from Bonin, going to try to pick apart the late game of the Ramp's hand. So we have 3 more lands, a Nissa Who Shakes the World, and a Chandra. Chandra's a pretty long ways away, so he'll take Nissa.
Yeah, the idea here is just that Bonin wants to make sure there's a lot of distance in terms of turns between Tania and her impactful spells, so you're just going to take the cheaper one basically every time.
Now, Chandra can't be countered, so he will hope to find, between now and that turn, another discard spell.
Right, and you know, we talked about those duresses coming in before. That's exactly what he's planning to lean into here.
Fairy Time Raveler puts Leafkin Druid back into Tanya's hand, but she has drawn the answer. It is Omnath. 1 damage, ping it in there, and Teferi is gone.
Old Cheeto fingers.
Is that Omnath?
Oh, that's Omnath.
Okay,
Yeah,
okay,
it's like a 3-step process. Step 1, be yourself. If you want to be Simic, all right, fine. Go stand in water. Step 3, if you want to be Teamer,
All right.
Cheeto fingers.
I feel like we missed a step in between.
Oh, did I do it backwards?
I feel like we went from
Oh, I did
stand
do
in
it
water
backwards.
to-
No, you have to be yourself. That's how you're mono green. Omnath, mono green, Cheeto fingers for red,
If
and
anyone
then stand
understands
in water
this story,
for blue.
please tweet. Send help.
I'll catch y'all on the website.
Chandra was taken with another Thought Erasure. Here's Leafkin Druid from Tanya. Teferi, Hero of Dominaria for Brad Bonin. That's going to plus. Hope to draw some sort of removal spells. It's with any elemental, Tanya will have enough power just to attack Teferi right off the table.
Yep, and I believe we saw a Tyrant Scorn hanging out in his hand, but that's not going to do anything about Omnath.
No, it can. I guess it can take care of Leafkin Druid.
Yeah, and here's the squeeze that the Esper Hero deck frequently puts people in. Tanya doesn't know where to put the counter from, say, just playing out a land, because if she puts the counter on the Druid, it can get Tyrant Scorn, and if she puts it on the Omnath, it can get desparked. Though, admittedly, if it gets desparked, she's pretty happy to just play any other card in her hand, knowing it won't get answered. Unless she has no other spell.
Shocks for Steam Vents. Looks like another Leafkin Druid and a Mass Manipulation. She's thinking about just sending Mass. This is actually an interesting decision. So both are an answer to Teferi. The Druid would put a second counter on the Druid. Mass Manipulation could just try to steal Teferi, so she attacks. Tyrant Scorn takes care of the Druid. Teferi down to 2. And
Do
now
it.
Can just steal the Teferi.
Do it. Oh, I love this play. Oh my goodness, do I love this play.
And now she will plus the Planeswalker. It looks weird because you attacked your own Planeswalker, but I like it a lot.
Oh, but she paved the way for it. It's a small sacrifice, but it's so good.
Another Teferi from Brad. He'll tuck his own Teferi. Means he will lose this one, though, to the Omnath on board. But can Tanya draw another follow-up? Right now, she was just on lands.
Well, luckily, she only needs a combat step to answer this Teferi.
Attack at 2 Leafkin Druids and the land is her hand.
And she's very close to this Omnath, drawing cards every time a land enters the battlefield.
Right, it's the 8th land when that happens?
Right.
So this is, you're right, this turn she has no big plays, but with a land 7 and the Leafkin Druids, every draw is live from here. Land puts a counter on the Leafkin Druid.
Very much like her choosing to hold her other Leafkin Druid, so it makes a Risen Reef a much better draw.
Hero Precinct 1 and 4 mana up for Brad. Does she have the 8th land? She does not.
Ooh, Cavalier of Thorns is an 8th land, probably.
Yeah. That's actually the best. It's another threat and the land.
Exactly.
Into 4 mana. Deciding whether it's worth, what could go wrong with jamming it, or if she has another option.
All I gotta say is in the name of that, let's quote that one Michael Jordan documentary.
Oh, of course.
Come on and slam. Welcome to the jam.
Oh, yeah, that documentary.
It's
the
a
one
documentary.
Where, yeah.
It's when Michael Jordan saved the planet. Duh.
A true story.
90s history.
As
Matthias,
told by
come on.
as told by Bill Murray.
Time to do some Omnath stuff. Ooh, Cavalier hitting a temple as well.
Cavalier hitting a temple, so she'll get the card, she'll get the scry. Get the counter.
Really just getting it all. Oh, ripping a temple there so she can...
She could have played it.
I believe she could have played the land
And I
for
make that
turn.
mistake all the... Yeah, that's one of those things that you forget when you ramp into a land and you haven't played your land. Actually, she could have just played it again for the turn.
Right, right.
She's going to get the chance to anyway.
Bright side, things are looking pretty good from here, even with Bonin drawing a Teferi next turn.
Draws another Omnath. Actually decent in case this one, something happens to the one she already has.
Oh, yeah, we call that the cannon.
I thought we called it Cheeto Fingers.
It's dangerously cheesy.
Scry and a draw and a counter. And here's an attack in. Double block. Looks like Brad's going to take 8, drop to 6. And surprise, we only did that block because there's another one.
Oh yeah, this is a really awkward spot where you have to make her have it, but at the same time, you kind of know the only way this attack happens is if she has it.
Well, now she has to decide whether... Yeah, she's going to play Leaf Druid. I think the damage might be going upstairs. Right, well, this would be because they're all elemental, so it deals 4.
She knows that Teferi's coming next turn. I believe you're just supposed to go after the hero because at this point, Tanya's probably won the game, and she's mostly just trying to cover the bases of ways she can lose the game. And letting Bonin have some sort of card advantage engine that can just chump block a bunch is one of the ways you lose the game.
Teferi draws a card. It's not a sweeper, so we're on to game 3. Actually, Esper here, I don't believe plays any sweepers.
No, it is 2 Kaya's Wrath out of the sideboard, but that's all Bonin could really be looking at. And with that Cavalier of Thorns in play, Tony just gets back another Cavalier of Thorns.
Yeah. So, Tanya evens things up here with Teamer Elementals. Omnath really doing work that game.
Oh, absolutely.
And Omnath's it is of a size where it can be difficult.
Family size,
for
big bag.
Big bag. Big old bag of flaming hot Cheetos. Has a converted mana cost of 4, so it can't even be hit by Tyrant, Scorn.
No, it's pretty great just because it taxes a lot of the same spells that are going after your Planeswalkers, like D-Spark.
On to game 3. So over on our channel, we have SCG Tour events on the weekends, but during the week we have some shows as well that you can follow. On Wednesdays, we have Commander Versus. 5 p.m. Eastern Time, Twitch TV/SCG Tour. You can see that one, our in-house Commander team battle it out. And we got some new cards from M20, and certainly when you see cards like Bolus's Citadel, you can think that might play in Commander.
Yeah, it's just so much fun, right? There's so much personality. It feels like they interact a lot with the people. I'm actually a really big fan of this. I'm a closet commander player, if you will.
Okay, M20. Do you have anything in commander?
I mean, so it's awkward. I like the new Solemn Simulacrum, Olos, or Oros,
Okay, yeah.
excuse me. The problem is that it has a color identity of all 5 colors, and I do not like that.
Yeah, that's true. Anything that ramps is pretty exciting, but
Yeah.
you're right. Yeah, you can only play it in your 5-color commander.
Yeah, it is so incredibly awkward, and I don't like that. But I do like Risen Reef because one of my commander decks is Riku of 2 Reflections with Warp World, where the whole point of the deck is to cast
Enter the
Warp World
battlefield.
as many times in 1 turn as possible.
So this may not. That sounds great.
Oh, it's not, but it's miserable for everyone but me.
So I'm looking at Atemsis for commander.
Ooh.
Look, all I need is a lot of different mana costs of cards.
Make your way to your seats again.
Are you going to play
Legacy Challenge players.
the Demon? 3 mana.
Oh,
Something
the
of
huge
agonies.
one. The huge one, the one that just grows for
Oh,
all things
oh,
in
yeah,
graveyards?
yeah.
No, not in my Atemsis deck.
That's just reasonable.
See, the Atemsis is your commander, and you just play a bunch of blue instants of every color,
Oh,
and then you
right,
cast
right.
Atemsis, and then you win the game. Of every mana cost. And then you just show them your hand of all these instants, and then you say, I won.
Right. Okay.
Because we're being fun.
Would you look
We're
at
being
that?
a fun
Standards
blue
happening.
mage.
Standards happening, Matthias.
They're just playing lands. It's the good part's about to start, though.
What? I thought you loved people playing lands.
I do. Well, I
There's
guess
even
this
a
is the good
stomping
part.
ground. That's the good part.
Yeah, stomping ground and breeding pool.
That's like
We're on
that's
brand.
like your peanut butter to my chocolate.
Here's Teferi for Brad. Just draws the card. No acceleration from Tania. But value is going to start here. We have Risen Reef. Omnath is waiting for next turn.
Risen Reef lining up pretty well against Teferi here.
Yeah, the attack plus the Omnath. Actually, just the Omnath would be enough to answer the Teferi. Brad makes Hero Precinct 1 and a Tyrant's Scorn. So the Tyrant's Scorn actually means that the Omnath is not going to have much it can answer here.
Right. You don't. It's a weird spot where you want to use your mana efficiently, but you do not feel very good about having to use it like that. Especially when you have a Leafkin Druid and a Risen Reef in your hand, you really want to try to charge something up if you can.
See whether she goes for the Omnath or lays up with something like Risen Reef to try again next turn, see if it survives.
Yeah, it's a really awkward spot where you just feel like you're kind of in a nightmare scenario if you lay out Risen Reef or something and then it doesn't work out.
Right. And she's going to go for Omnath anyway. 1 damage, takes care of the token.
Just a little bit of a failsafe to make sure you can at least attack Teferi next turn.
Yeah, and next turn she does have Nissa Who Shakes the World available in hand. So maybe more, not sure that she'll find a window for Risen Reef immediately. It's Teferi joined by the Teferi Hero of Dominaria. Omnath is tucked away. Here Precinct 1 swings in, a 1-1 is made.
Oh, this 1-1 is so uncomfortable for Tania just because now if she plays the Nissa, rolls up, untaps a land, attacks something,
Doesn't
the token
work.
gets to trump it, and then Teferi Time Raveler bounces the land and kind of kills it.
Right. Especially with how many lands she has in hand, you don't want to see a land get unsummoned.
Exactly. It's just, it puts you so far behind in a very subtle way.
Land 5 from Tania. But does she have another play? That's the question, and it's not clear that she does. Here's Nissa Who Shakes the World.
The other side of things is if you get to untap with this Nissa, you do have a bunch of mana. Because now she can untap this breeding pool, attack at the Teferi, which will presumably eat a token, and then develop Leafkin Druid for 2 mana.
Right.
At the gathering point on pink paper, please.
There's the attack, and you're right, because of that Force Relay, she could have made Leafkin Druid, but she's going to pass on it. And I think that may have been just a misstep on the side. The blocker here does do a lot of work.
Right, and you would really rather see the untap on or the unsummon on the Leafkin Druid rather than your breeding pool. But
Yeah.
now you're just going to see Brad definitely target Breeding Pool with this unsummon if he chooses to activate it. Oh, or it could get hostage takered.
Ooh, okay.
You might not get to play the Breeding Pool, but the Breeding Pool is not coming back as a creature, I'll tell you that.
Yeah, it says you may cast that card for as long as it remains exiled. So
Okay.
if you hostage take or land, that's just out in exile forever. Well, you can't play it. I guess if
If the hostage taker
that
goes away,
taker
you
goes
get,
away,
yeah,
you get
yeah.
the land back. But no 1/1 counters, just the land.
Right. Didn't phase out.
Yeah. Brad has already used Hero of Dominaria to draw a card. He has not used Time Raveler yet.
Yeah, that was the easy decision. Everything else is choices. Teferi didn't have 3 counters, so you know it's going up.
Right. So when you click on it and only one thing pops up, then you click that.
Right.
And here is Hostage Taker, takes care of the land. Makes a pair of 1/1s as he made a Hero Precinct 1. But on the bright side for Tanya, Nissa is going to stick around. She'll have, and
my
she has
goodness.
all forests in play.
This gives Tanya such an incredible window. If she can rip a Chandra, the game just ends on the spot.
Right. Time Raveler picks up a different card for Brad. Back to Tanya we go. Yep, yeah, sorry. Teferi picks up the Hostage Taker, so that's back in Brad's hand.
Wait, is it gone forever?
The land?
Yeah. Is there some weird clause where if it's not a creature, it can't return it to the battlefield or something?
I don't believe so, but we'll check with our judge on this.
Yeah, it looks like that's what they're looking into right now. Looks like that's what they're talking about. And this is a really interesting ruling, I think, where, you know, at a glance, I assume that's how it works. But if someone walked up and, you know, a judge told me that this is not how that works, I'd go, yeah, I guess I see the hoops my brain would have to jump through for that to be the way things happen.
Because you exile a creature or artifact, and when it's an exile, it's not a creature or artifact?
Yeah,
Yeah, they're going to ask a judge about this, and we'll get a ruling on it, on exactly how this one works. All right, so the question right now is we're getting a judge to interpret the rules as to whether or not this land is going to come back. Because it was exiled as a creature, but it lives in exile as a land, there's some complexity to it.
Yeah, and this is a spot where, you know, they're just trying to basically make sure their I's are dotted, T's are crossed, the whole nine.
Call going to be made here by L3 judge Casey Brefka.
Paul Baronet, head judge, weighing in.
Actually, yeah, Casey, the table spotter. Yeah, the red shirt, the head judge, has been called in to explain the ruling. So strategically what's going to happen here is Tanya either untaps with 8 mana or 10 mana, depending on whether she gets the land
That's a
back.
lot of mana.
And now it's not,
But,
it can't be quad blue, so there's no mass manipulation, but what is the next best thing she can
well,
do?
so here's the thing. If she gets that breeding pool back
Right.
and then plays a blue land, she can float a blue and then untap it with Nissa.
So she actually can get to
It is
4 mana.
it is
possible.
possible from here for her to end up with blue mana. So basically the thing that she's hoping to find here, because she has the ability to say get this blue land back, untap, of course,
Yeah.
float 2 blue, untap one of it with Nissa, play
Tap
a
it
new
again,
blue.
and then play another one. So that's the maximum she can make would be 4.
Right, but that's up to 12 mana, or not 12, excuse me. One of those lands is a Rootbound Crag. So it looks like the thing that he's going to be able to do from here is, all right, if the land comes back, the best that she can hope to do this turn is just have 3 permanents and be stolen from Brad. So she could take Teferi, Hero, and all of a sudden, Brad's side of the battlefield is just kind of in shambles.
All right, so judge has made a ruling. It's been appealed. The ruling is that it doesn't actually matter the card type, that it satisfied the requirements when it was targeted, and once the card's gone, the card is linked to Hostage Taker. So because Hostage Taker left the battlefield, the land is coming back, and Tanya will get to have that for her next turn. With that said, we're going to go back down to our match as they resume it.
All right, and we see a Steam Vents hiding out in Tanya's hand, so if she ripped the Mass Manipulation, then it is very possible.
All right, Risen Reef to play. That's going to make Mass Manipulation off the table, right?
Right.
Because that blue has been spent.
Correct. It still leaves Chandra on the table, though.
And Leafkin Druid from Tanya. That one triggers Risen Reef as well. She gets Fry.
Fry's a big one.
5 damage to a blue or white creature or planeswalker.
And she also has an Omnath hanging out in her hand. She has so many ways.
She'll just clean this up.
Right. She does know there's still a Hostage Taker hiding out in Brad's hand.
So the worry about playing Omnath is that it could be taken hostage.
Right, and let's see. It looks like she's going to go ahead and just clean up one of these Hero Precinct ones. I really like this play because it is one of those cards that actually just keeps Brad in this game. And the way that she can make sure that Fry is covered is basically the Hostage Taker is covered is with the card Fry, because it's an instant. She can kill Hostage Taker with its taking hostage on the stack.
Robert Sager. Standard open competitor Robert Sager. Please report to the open storekeeper.
So Nissa makes the mana making mana here. Makes Omnath. Omnath shoots down one of the heroes of Precinct 1.
Open competitors, that is time in the round. An active player will finish their turn and proceed to follow additional turns. Again, standard open competitors, that is time in the round.
And now it's one of the copies of Fry. That's going to go for the other hero of Precinct 1.
Okay, so her plan here is just to attack down Teferi, knowing that all Teferi can do is draw a card, and Hostage Taker doesn't have enough to steal and cast Omnath. It's very likely she's just okay with Omnath getting stolen.
And it's going to overpower it with all these resources. As long as she untaps with Nissa again, things will just continue to snowball in her advantage.
Yeah, the more I look at this line, the more I really, really like what Tanya's doing with her cards here. She knows she's going to win the creature fight as long as heroes are answered. And you see Brad shaking his hand, knowing that this has kind of gotten away from
Well,
him.
she's just playing to the board and not to the player's hands. And I like that because the difference here is that Tanya has more mana than Brad. So as long as she controls the board and both players spend all their mana each turn, things will continue to get better for her.
Yeah, and when you see something like Narset come down, you know this is a desperation move.
Right. Hoping for something like Kaya's Wrath, but Brad only finds Thought Erasure.
That ain't it.
Because his play there was Narset, it does make me think that Kaya's Wrath is back in the deck for this.
Yeah, this is the spot where he kind of knows that that's the only way that he stays in this game.
Yeah, it feels like, what other card would he be looking for?
Right.
And for Brad, fourth land here, goes up to 7.
You're just confirming life totals. And with all the incremental things that happen in these, and especially Shocklands getting involved, this is exactly why people use life pads instead of dice at events of this level.
Hostage taker takes Omnath hostage, cannot recast it. Back to Tania we go.
Getting to untap with a Risen Reef is so huge.
And so much mana. Her hand is mostly lands, but
She
also
has a Tamio.
She also has a Tamio.
That's-
So what are you looking for in the graveyard?
Well, you know what? Do you like your hostage takers roasted, broiled, or fried? Just wondering.
Looks like it's gonna be fried.
Perfect.
Tamio brings that back. Here's hostage taker. Gets Omnath back. Omnath back into play. Yeah, that's 3 elementals.
A delicacy in some countries. And now she just gets to start attacking down all of these planeswalkers.
Actually, more elementals than that. The lands are elementals.
Oh yeah, it's so many elementals.
Can tack down.
That's
both
part
the
of the synergy with
planeswalkers.
Chandra. Is she deals 3 to all non-elemental creatures, and
Oh,
it
that's
doesn't
so
shoot
nice.
Nissa's lands.
Board is cleared for Tania. She has taken control of this and looks to have lethal next turn. Brad needs to find his Kaya's Wrath right now to have a chance to stay
Yep.
in.
And
It's not in his hand. Does he have a redraw?
so he has an Oath of Kaya that can maybe buy him a turn. That gets to shoot down one of the land creatures or the Omnath as well as gain 3 life.
Thought Erasure. He can look at her hand. Can't make her discard one, though. Tamio's in play. 2 Oaths of Kaya. And the land, but he has to shock for the land. Still gains 4. Removes, and he decides to remove Nissa with this. It's
That makes sense. Sure.
if your Kaya's Wrath or bust, might as well make the Kaya's Wrath as good as it can be.
Exactly. So right now, Tania has 3, 5, 8, 11, and a land drop is going to put it up to 12.
Her draw was Cavalier of Thorns. Good card, but I don't think it changes the clock.
It doesn't change the clock, but it does make the damage 13.
Nissa, or Tania rather, going to name named Hydroid Crisis.
Sure, makes sense. She's just looking for the best way to use all of her mana and relative to what she has the most copies of in her deck.
Here's Cavalier of Thorns. Trigger, she'll see which one she wants first. She has a Risen Reef trigger and the Cavalier trigger. Top 5. Puts the Temple into play.
Big fan of all this sequencing. Oh, now she gets to stack the Scry with Omnath's trigger. Oh my.
That land. She does not have, I guess she does have 8 lands.
Oh yeah.
That was number 8. Remember, those 2 creatures up there are both lands. So she has a Scry and a 1/1 counter from Omnath and a draw from Omnath. And then she has the second trigger off the Cavalier from the Risen Reef.
Yep. And also gets to play a land for a turn.
Right. There's a lot of stuff going on. A lot of value.
Trigger, 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 Omnath, Omnath.
They're going to take a second to sort out.
Oh yeah, just
What's
making
going
sure
on the
how
board.
all of these triggers work. Need to make sure and remember that that Risen Reef started this turn with 1/1 counter on it.
Kind of confirming where they are on the turn here.
And really, this is starting to get to the point of the game where things have just kind of slipped away from Bonin without being able to find that Kaya's Wrath, without being able to find some way to just be able to catch up on this side of the battlefield. Tania kind of identifying that what she needed to do earlier in the game was point her removal spells specifically at Hero of Precinct 1s did so much to change the texture of this game and make it to where she could actually just turn having bodies on the battlefield into a resource by going after Planeswalkers.
So the point here is to sort out the different triggers and to where we are in the sequencing of things. But I think you're right. Taking care of those heroes of Precinct 1 has really opened the door here. I like that Tania was addressing the board immediately, just constantly trying to clear the board and not play toward anything else.
Yeah, I thought that was some wonderful sequencing on her part. Well, more prioritization than sequencing.
See a Risen Reef trigger here. And a swing here from Tania. All right, so swing in for Tania. It's still going to be on Brad to find Kaya's Wrath.
And here, it looks like it's just like about having a counter on the Risen Reef or
Right.
not. And it's probably not going to change the clock for the most part. It's just, with all these triggers, one of the awkward things is just sometimes triggers are invisible, and that makes things awkward.
So swing in for 5. Could put Brad down to 12. If Tania has another Omnath, at what point are we looking at that? See, that Omnath
This
deals...
might just be lethal. It is lethal here, right? Because yeah, there it is. The elemental, the Leafkin up top, taps for 2 mana. The 2
Right.
lands are 3 and 4, and the colors she needs, and that is game.
All right, so the attack there, in recap, Brad at 17, the attack there was 11 power, 3 powers and a 2, puts Brad to 6, and then she has 6 elementals. Boom,
Yes.
Omnath makes it exactly lethal.
Exactly. Wow, that was incredibly precise and so complicated because of how much this elemental deck can do.